This is All India Radio. In the program Spotlight, now we bring you a year-ender series special discussion on New Education Policy, a step towards New India. The participants are Dr. J.S. Rajput, former Director, NCERT, and Sonu Sood, AIR correspondent.
More than a year back, on 29 July 2020, the Cabinet, under the leadership of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, replacing 34-year-old education system. This much-awaited reform in the education sector is significant for the economy of the country, for the development of the country, the growth of the country. Sir, can you tell us about the significance of the new education policy in helping realize the government's vision of a new India?
Policies are not replaced. There is a continuum. And new education policy is also a continuum of all the efforts that have been made in education during the last about 75 years. Education has to be a dynamic process. Every change that happens outside has something to do with education. Education initiates change. It prepares generations to understand change, comprehend change, and continue the change in the interest of its own people. So this policy has taken note of the developments that took place during last over 3 decades, 1986-92 onwards. It has taken also in consideration the aspirations, the expectations that are new, the new requirements of the society, the nation, and its international relationships and comprehensions. So all these things lead to the policy change. This policy was prepared after intensive deliberations at every stage of society, every sector of society. And for 4 years, the members of the committees were working on this. I may mention that there were 2 committees. First, there was a committee headed by T.S.R. Subramaniam, the former cabinet secretary. Then there was a committee headed by Dr. Kasturi Rangan. So all these deliberations, all these inputs from people, they have been taken into account, and that is why you must have said this policy has received universal acclaim from the citizens of the country. This policy will lead us during the next decade or more to a situation which will be conducive to the learners' aspirations, expectations. It will usher in a new era of new pedagogy, new thinking, new approach to learning, new approach to teaching, new approach to assessment and evaluation. Then the teacher preparation, very significant aspect of any policy, has been taken into account. The structures have been changed. All these things are to respond to the dynamism that is necessary. That is why we have gone ahead with this policy.
As you said, education is a dynamic process and the policy is continuing the good work that has been done and carrying it forward. If we talk about 2 levels of education, the school level and the higher education, first talking about school level, what do you feel are the major changes which have been incorporated in the new education policy?
The first major change is very significant, and that is the child should be looked after from the point of view of learning after 3 years. And that has been added. Now we are beginning at 5+. Now they intend to begin at 3+. It's a very challenging acceptance of the realities of the situation. If we can succeed in that, it will make a tremendous transformation, because now studies are available which indicate that the growth of the mind of the child and other aspects takes place at a very significant speed at this stage and this age. And therefore, that is a structural change that will make all the difference. Then they have also merged. The continuum has been strengthened between class 9th to 12th. That should be helped. 4-year integrated courses that have been planned for the university after +2. And then you can do research. This is in consonance with the global trends everywhere. I have conducted 4-year integrated courses for teacher preparation as the head of a regional institute for 11 years. These were initiated by NCERT, and it has proved in India also through these experimental courses run initially at 4 places, that if you go ahead in a 4-year course, you prepare excellent products. That has been accepted now for all the courses. But the issue is, it will all depend upon the implementation, because you cannot achieve the expected change, the indicated changes, and the changes with which people aspirations have grown up, unless and until you are fully equipped, at least with basic minimum essentials in our schools and colleges and universities. But new policy takes care of is quality. In quality, we have necessarily gone down. And there is no hesitation about saying this to anybody, our quality and new. One thing that pains me is the credibility and acceptability of the government schools has gone down everywhere. My one sentence which in my lectures, in my writings is भारत के समेकित विकास का रास्ता गांव के प्राइमरी स्कूल के दरवाजे से निकलता है. Improve the government primary schools. You will have tremendous amount of upsurge in the quality of education in the new education policy, because at policy level we are at the best. We have prepared the finest policy. I am familiar with international policies and also how they are changed and implemented. I had the privilege of knowing all this. So my only concern is there is no deficiency in the policy. It is as dynamic as one could expect a policy to be at this stage, but it will all depend upon the resource input, upon our enthusiasm, upon our commitment, both as a government, central government, state government, and people. That is very significant aspect. How the society and people, how they come and they become partners in the implementation of the new education policy.
As you said, it's a very challenging road ahead, and the implementation will require participation and enthusiastic participation from all stakeholders. In the same vein, do you feel that creation of a positive mindset among especially the bottom of the pyramid towards education is equally important to create Atmanirbhar individuals all across the country?
An environment has been created in the country when people have really been inspired and enthused on various aspects. I go to the villages in UP, in the central UP, where I was brought up and I have grown up and I know the area. I find yes, people are full of enthusiasm. For the first time, they have seen that the government has reached them, their accounts, their gas things, their toilets, and all those bank accounts, money coming to bank accounts, though meager, but it has given them a sense of belongingness. They feel, yes, the central government, the state government, they are all looking after us. They are concerned about us. They are trying their best. Not that all the deficiencies have been removed or everybody has become very happy, but a confidence has been grown up. Now, if there is a campaign, if there is a mission approach in which people participate, that government schools will be improved, I can assure you, society will come up very fast and they will help. Why we have lost about the government schools? This we should consider, because we did not follow the common school system, which was one of the recommendations of the Kothari Commission, based upon whose recommendation we have their first education policy in 1968. If common school system, if children from society, all the strata of society were learning together, things would have been very different. Today the situation is all those who plan policies and who implement it up to the level of primary school, their children are not in government schools. This, to my mind, is something which the nation must take care of. We must proceed towards the common school system. It's nice to have private investment in education. It is nice to have very good schools endowed with all these finest things. Because I say in India, you have schools which can compare with the best or most endowed schools anywhere in the world. But you also have schools which may still not have more than one teacher, which may not have toilets, which may not have drinking water, which may not have the building worth being called a building. So this is too much of a contrast. And this gap must be reduced as far as possible in education. My expectation is that the new education policy must be implemented in a manner that the gap between those who have no option but to go to government schools unwillingly, the one side, and those who are now fed up with the increasing fee in the private schools. Because of the pandemic, there has been a move from private schools towards the government schools. This is a situation where we must come forward and equip our primary schools as much as we can. The nation cannot think of implementing the policy wholeheartedly if you have more than 10 lakhs vacancies of school teachers. If you have 40%, 50% vacancies in central universities, and the conditions of state universities on such counts of resources and faculty positions is certainly very, very painful. So these are the areas which must be tackled in the new education policy, and that is what is the expectations of every person who is in education.
So if we talk about higher education, policy talks about moving towards a more holistic and multidisciplinary education, talks about multiple exit opportunities, and it talks about academic bank of credit where these students are able to exit their courses and then rejoin them after a gap without losing out on what they have studied. So you think these are also revolutionary ideas where technology is going to play a major role in maintaining the academic bank of credit, or as in the case of schools, national digital education architecture?
Whenever a reference is made to Einstein and his work, we all develop respect for him. And if you go a bit further and read a few more lines about Einstein, immediately they will say his violin. He was so fond of his violin. Once Einstein said, if I had all the powers to shape the education in my country, in any country, I would teach only two things, music and mathematics. Everything else will follow. When Gandhiji used to say he will use the Takli and other things, basic education principles, I see the similarity of the thinking and thought process. You cannot bind the child that if you read physics, you must read chemistry, you must read this. If you read physics, you cannot read music, you cannot read philosophy. Now, this is something which should happen much earlier, but now it is going to happen. We should not restrict the children in some compartments. Either you are in science, or you are in social sciences, or you are in academic, or you are in vocation. All these things have merged with time. So this is a very significant aspect in higher education. People will have the liberty to read physics and philosophy and music, philosophy and chemistry if they so like. Anything is possible.
Do you feel we'll be moving closer to international standards of education?
No, this is the requirement of the time. Every country must decide its own education policy based upon its own indigenous, I would say like this. Every country has a system of knowledge quest and knowledge growth, knowledge generation, knowledge creation, knowledge dissemination. Every country has. The aims are same, the objectives are same, but traditions are different. And therefore, internationally it is accepted that education in every country must be rooted to its culture, committed to progress. Gandhi ji has said this. मैं अपने घर के दरवाजे खिड़कियां खुली रखूंगा. Allow new ideas to come, but they do not blow away my own. So I would like to know about the international policies. I am not enamored of showing that yes, I am also on par with the international standards. I have to be ahead of anybody and I have to be myself. India's education policy must be India's own creation, generation, and then it should lead to dissemination of knowledge. We had read in our young age, future empires shall be empires of knowledge. So now the main objective is to create your as much as possible the knowledge capital, the cognitive capital. Countries which have to move ahead with progress and development, they have to have this objective. Nurture the talent, nourish the talent, ensure that no talent is wasted. And this is possible only when the exit and coming back at the discretion of the learner is permitted. And now with the technology coming up, this was impossible 50 years ago to manage all that. Now it can be managed. It is possible and universities have already started working on it. So that way, if you see the difference of the 50 years, which people like me have observed when we did research, we used to write a letter by emails, get a paper after 1 month. Today I can do it within seconds and minutes. I can correspond with anybody. I can talk to anybody. I can read about any subject I like. We have seen the era when parents are forcing children that you must go to engineering, you must go to this, that type of thing. You will find that after 10 years, a system will grow. General feeling in the environment will grow in the schools at the level of say plus 2, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th. Children themselves will say, this is my choice. I would like to be a poet. I would like to be an author. I would like to be a musician. I am more interested in theatre. And parents will be educated enough by that time. I have the confidence that they will say, yes, if you are talented in this area, we will allow you to go into these avenues. No parental enforcement. It is getting reduced now. But this has been a very fine observation. And that gives an idea on how to change your policy. Assessment the way they are changing everywhere.
Thank you so much for this insightful discussion, sir.
Thank you.
You are listening to a year-ender series special discussion on New Education Policy, A Step Towards New India. The participants were Dr. J.S. Rajput, former Director, NCERT, and Sonu Sood, AIR Correspondent. This program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of All India Radio. You can listen to it on our mobile app, News on AIR. This program is also available on our YouTube channel, News on AIR Official. You may email your opinion about this program at airnsdtalks@gmail.com.